Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore.
Welcome to Something Came from Baltimore. I am your host, Tom Gauker, and I have a disclaimer to this episode with Joey DeFrancesco. I am an early fan of his work, and I remember seeing him playing over 30 years ago, so I will always be rooting for him, and Joey doesn't disappoint because his last recording is an epic event. More Music is Joey DeFrancesco's latest recording. It was released on September 24, 2021 on the Mack Avenue Records. We're going to go down memory lane a little, and we're going to chat about Joey's school days with Christian McBride and Questlove from The Roots. And we're also going back to my jazz learning ground, a jazz club in Philadelphia called the Ortlieb's Jazz House, where Joey played and I watched over 30 years ago. These conversations can be found on an interview of Joey DeFrancesco on the Something Came from Baltimore YouTube page if you want to check all that out. Remember to subscribe and to flip the 5 people because we want you all to be a part of that Be More Music scene. So let's get into the interview with Joey DeFrancesco. And before we do that, we want to sample the song More Music. It's the name of the album and it's the name of a song. All right. Well, Joey, I want to thank you very much. Welcome to Something Came from Baltimore.
Thank you.
You know, we spoke on July 8, 2019, and this is like one of the first times I'm able to catch up with someone, you know, from album to album. So I'm going to ask you some follow-ups from the previous interview. We were talking about In the Key of the Universe, which I voted as the best album of the year for the Grammys.
Oh, thank you.
I thought it was a great album, along with this album, More Music, which came out September 20th on the Mack Avenue record label.
Yes.
Yeah. So in between that time, you had mentioned that you're going to be working with Christian McBride for the kind of the first time, and you recorded an album together called Jimmy West and Oliver. What was that like working with him after all these times?
Well, first, I mean, as you know, the history, we went to high school together. And, you know, the first time we worked together in the studio was on my record, my third record called Part 3. When I was with Columbia, I did a couple of piano trio tracks on that, and I had Christian play on that with me. So that was the first time we worked together in a big way in the studio. But this was, you know, and then a lot of years, that was 1990 when we did that. So you're talking about almost 30 years before we got a chance to do it again. And, you know, we would talk from time to time about it, but we were both so busy that we couldn't get it together. So finally he called me one day. I think he called me, it was like in 2016. He asked me about it, you know. Actually, we were on a jazz cruise together. That's what it was. And he said, what do you think about doing a big band record, you know, some of the charts, the Oliver Nelson charts that he did with Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery. I said, yeah, that would be fun. And then we talked about using Mark Whitfield on guitar because, you know, that's a history. We all came up around the same time, you know, late 80s, early 90s. So that's how that came together. And we finally got together and did it.
Happiness is a chart done by Oliver Nelson. Oh my, he is awesome.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah,
for sure. One of my favorites.
I am a fan of Questlove's like podcast. I'm also a fan of Something Came from Baltimore's podcast. But when I listen to Questlove, he mentions you and Christian often, but on the lines of he looked at you guys as being past well-rounded. Like he came into that school not really knowing what his voice was and who he was. And he always looked at you two as knowing exactly who you were and being ultra professional even during school. Did you ever, knock around and hang out with him or give him any advice?
Well, we were all together. First of all, we were all kids too, but we were all together. There was also Kurt Rosenwinkel was there with us too. And we all had a good time together. There wasn't a lot of advice going on. We were just kids. What advice, we might have told him. He asked us things like what to listen to when it comes to straight ahead jazz and little pointers here and there. But he had such a tremendous feel. He could groove. So he found his niche and really, took it and did something with it.
When we were talking previously, you were a vegan and you were slimming down. It looks like you continued that process because the new promo pictures, you look really thin.
Thank you. I'm not vegan.
No?
But not yet. I still eat fish,
Okay. Wow, that's cool.
But yeah, it just over the past, it's taken a long time, but slowly, but this last couple of years, we really had time to concentrate and get more health conscious. And I had already been doing that and just really sped it up process and getting into it and swimming and going for nice walks in the desert and things. And so that's, been something I wanted to do,
When we were talking in 2019, we were mentioning spirituality and that you were hitting a groove with that album. That was becoming a larger part in your life. So we're just doing a catch up. Did that evolve even more for you or,
Yeah, that evolves more every day, being more aware of things and paying attention to what's going on just with, nature and being around that and your surroundings. And it affects the music. It affects everything in your life. It's very important. That's something we all have in us, but it's something that you have to, as you mature, you pay more attention to it, it comes out more. Hopefully that's the goal. And I'm learning more and more about it every day.
During COVID, you didn't sit still. You were still working. And were you more in Arizona area or were you bouncing back and forth from Philadelphia?
Well, we didn't work. I mean, March 15th was my last gig actually in DC. We did the last gig at Blues Alley before things got shut down. So March 16th, I was on an airplane coming back to Arizona. We figured whatever, a couple of weeks, just like everybody else, and we'll be back at it. And then it turned into, what it has turned into. But from that time, and then I did one gig in front of an audience in November of 2020 in St. Louis. And then we did a couple of streams. I did the Melbourne Jazz Festival in June of 2020. And then I did some, live streams on my own just for people, to do them. I did the Jazz Cruise. Did a stream that we recorded in October of 2020 in California with George Benson, Marcus Miller. And that was fun. We did that. But yeah, primarily, it was home, just dealing with the situation and bittersweet situation because it was nice to have some time off and really think about the music and, play my instruments and write more new tunes. And that's how more music came out,
Yeah, we're going to get into more music. I see these albums come out, like they're more and more spectacular. I think that you're in a groove where your albums are almost becoming events and the look on the album cover is really awesome. Your look is amazing. It's like you could easily be doing standards and just pumping out albums, but I feel that this is an event album. This is a really cool album.
Well, thank you. It is an event. That's how every album, especially over the last probably 10 years, has been like an event.
Exactly.
And I like it. And I've always loved going into the studio, prepping for it, the whole thing. And more music. I mean, the title, you were talking about In the Key of the Universe, that's what those titles and what they are. They're themes. And they're really how I feel at the moment. There's nothing contrived about it. It is what it is. And then More Music is a situation where we had to get back to it. Just, there's nothing like it. Music is what gets you through everything. It really is. When people take it for granted for sometimes about how important it is. If you think about your life without it, it's crazy. If you watch a TV show, a movie, anything, the music is the emotional part of it. That's why More Music it means a lot of things. It means that. It means I'm into other aspects of the instrumentation, of what I'm doing. You know, I have a band that's basically two bands in one. It's something that I've been looking at doing for a while. We started doing it already before pandemic. We just got interrupted, but we kept talking about what we were going to do. And I got deeper into writing music for these specific situations. Yeah, I like that. They're like events. They're like it's a storybook. And then I like to get to the point too in a recording. Of course, and what that means is, you know, without the need for long solos. Now, if you get into something really is musical, okay, we could have a longer song. I mean, in the Key to the Universe, we had Greater as a Master Plan was 11 minutes long, but it feels like it's 2 minutes when you listen to it because there's something happening that keeps you there and captured. But, you know, I like the theme and, you know, a good feel and a nice improvisation. So it gives us the perfect vehicle to play this music live and open it up even more so that when people come to see you, they have an idea of the selections and what you're going to do, but they get even more of an honest feeling of the music, you know, because you're improvising even more and you can stretch it out more and explore live right there in front of everybody.
What was fun about this album is that you somehow released it out into the press world for over a month. So I had a copy of it, and I'm walking the park doing my exercise, and I'm listening to this album. I'm like, man, is he generous? Like, he is offering up, you know, solos to keyboard, trumpets, tenor sax, and he's, you know, very, very generous on this album. And then I read the liner notes. I'm like, oh, this is him. This is you doing all this stuff. This is like the first time that you broke out and to do many more parts, including the vocals.
Well, in some respects, not exactly. I mean, I've been doing that for a long time, like playing other keyboards. And I played trumpet on some of my records, but not to this extent. And then, of course, adding the reed instrument, saxophone. But the other part is having another organ player and another voice of an instrument that is very associated with myself, to have another person playing it and be able to bounce off of him and what he's doing with the other instruments that I play is really a nice musical experience too, you know, because it shows the differences in what you could do musically with the same instrument, still be effective with different styles. And I love that, you know, and I'm happy to introduce more of that to the world because there's a lot of great cats playing organ out there. And, you know, this is another example of how strong that sound is and how important it is. You know, everybody kind of knew I played trumpet, but I thought that, but you know, there's a lot of people still that didn't. And I've been playing it in my live performances for the past 30 years. But, you know, I'll play a tune and then, you know, I have to play it with one hand because I can't, you know, I'm playing the bass lines, right? So I'd pick ballads, I'd pick things that I could play, you know. Now I'm able to actually stand up and play the instrument to its full capacity, at least to my full capacity, because that's a tough instrument like they all are, and really feel at one with it, holding it with two hands, you know, really being able to play it and explore with it. And the same thing with the saxophone. I've been playing saxophone. It'll be 3 years in November consistently. I did dabble with it many years ago, but really getting serious about it, it's been like 3 years. And then Lucas Brown, the organ player, he, you know, from Philadelphia, played with people like Bootsy Barnes on a regular basis. And I used to listen to him play with a lot of different saxophone players, Larry McKenna and Bootsy Barnes, like I said, and hearing him play, he knows how to play with those instruments. He's a wonderful accompanist. So, you know, all this was very, it all came together very nicely. The idea, the fact that I wanted to play saxophone, because I talked to Lucas many years ago about doing this anyway, because of the fact that he plays guitar too. Mm-hmm. Because I still love the organ, guitar, drums, that traditional trio. But I also wanted to find somebody that played guitar a little bit different in that respect, that it's not the normal way that you usually hear guitarists play with the organ. It's a little bit different. It's a little more, you know, harmonically involved. And it's probably because of the fact that he plays the organ too. So he incorporates some of that into his guitar playing, you know. So we could just switch up at any time and we have that happen. It just keeps everything fresh for us, and I think for the listener too.
Lucas Brown went to school at Temple. He plays the organ. And I went on his website. He said he went to the school of Bootsy Barnes, which, you have that relationship. Can I reminisce a little about Ortlieb's Jazz House a little? Because I know you mentioned it in your bio. Like
Sure.
that's how I learned about jazz. You are very integral into how I learned about jazz. I used to go down to your dad had a night and Bootsy had a night, and I would run down there, and I've seen you play. You sold me 2 cassettes of your music. I think it was probably your first and second album. And very little conversation. I gave you the money. You gave me the cassettes. But if I remember correctly, people would walk in the door and people would go, oh, wow, blah, blah, blah's here. After the next song, they're up on the stage, and the stage isn't a stage. It felt like crates, like it was very low to the ground. And it was very small. You could only fit like 5 people tops. You would play, but then when they would figure out what the next song would play, you would be like jamming a little by yourself. I felt that was the most exciting, and I call it my happy place. Like, I've never had so much fun listening to jazz and seeing the community of people together. Just, hey, someone comes in, someone's, is up, they're up on the stage the next song, and everyone's laughing and very supportive. I always wondered, did you ever tell people not to get on stage? Like, you suck, you need to get off the stage?
Well, first of all, Ortlieb's was it was a community. It was a wonderful time period. And if you caught that was really great that you got to see that. It was a brotherhood of musicians, and you had legendary people. Mickey Roker was playing drums usually, and Bootsy Barnes was playing tenor saxophone. Anybody could walk in that was, prevalent on the scene, or if somebody was playing at another club in town, they always came there after. I never officially played there as a featured. I would go down there if I was in town, because you got to remember, I started hitting the road in 1989. My first record came out. So, things were rolling and I was on the road a lot. But whenever I was back in town, I'd always go down there. And the drummer with me at the time for many years, Byron Landon, also from Philadelphia, he played quite a bit at Ortlieb's too. So when we were off the road, he would work there when Mickey Roker had to sub out. And I was there a lot, and I would go down there and I'd play and I'd sit in, and all the cats would have a great time. I didn't really have control of telling anybody not to play or go off the stage, and there was nobody in there going in there to play that sucked. So, and
they knew better.
Like you said, that just didn't happen.
I never saw anyone say, they came in with their cases. I've never seen anyone turn away, and I guess they knew better. But
that's right. It was like a throwback to the old things you hear about Minton's Playhouse in Harlem. You better play if you came in there. It was a lot more violent back then, from the stories I've been told. If you got up there and played and you didn't sound good, you get in big trouble. But at the same time, because of the situation I had, and that when in Philadelphia, everybody loved me. I grew up there. I was very fortunate to have that Philadelphia jazz musician support for the most part. So I did a lot of experimenting, and it's funny that you mentioned, because when I started, like I said, I've been playing the saxophone now seriously for almost 3 years, but about 20 years ago, 35 years ago, whatever it is, 25 years ago, when I first pulled it out and started messing around with it for a few days, I had the guts to go down to Ortlieb's because I knew everybody loved me there. I could do whatever I want down there. So I went down there and played and sucked. So there's somebody. There's an example who somebody got on stage and sucked. Me. It was funny because it's a great story too, because there's another dear friend of mine, and it was the first time I met him. He was a tenor saxophone player. His name is Victor North. You may know Victor.
Yeah. And
he's a tremendous player from Alaska, but he's been in Philly for like 35 years, something like that. When I went down there to sit in on saxophone that night, the cats it was Mike Boone, great bass player, was playing bass. The piano player was Sid Simmons. Byron Landon was on drums. And so I said, I'm going to go down and play some tenor. I'm going to play some blues. I'm ready, just because I know these cats love me. And, I was young. So I got on stage, and this other saxophone player gets up there. I tell this story a lot because Victor looks a lot like Buddy Holly. Very unintimidating, sweet looking, nice cat. And I said, oh, okay. So we kick off this blues. I jump in, I play the first solo, and, the cats are laughing because they're like, oh, here he comes with another instrument, And then Victor just totally ripped this guy that I thought, oh, I could deal with Buddy Holly, just totally killed it. I'm like, okay. And I said, I think I'm not ready for the tenor saxophone. So I put it away for many years. So that's the thing though. But if you have the love and the support, and the fact is at that time, I mean, I had a lot of records out, and I was, as an organist and as a trumpet player, people knew, but that's part of being young and having a good time, and all your friends are working down there. But every once in a while, somebody might come in that's not perfect, but if they're really sincere and they're trying, you got to give them a shot. And usually some of the cats will pull their coat and say, listen, give me a call. And so I could tell you, help you with what you're doing. That's the beauty of this. And that's how it should be. It shouldn't be a negative situation, but you also have to know when you're ready or not,
Was I wrong? Didn't your dad have a night? Like when Bootsy had a night where it was like,
my dad didn't have a night, but he played there a lot.
He did play there a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He would play there on Wednesdays usually. And then he would play like on the weekends, and it would be Bootsy Barnes, and it would be Mickey Roker a lot of times, and then all kinds of cats would sit in. It was just a ball.
Okay, I'm going to get into this album in a couple minutes, but I have one really off-the-wall question. I interviewed Delvon Lamar for the organ trio just recently, and we were talking about organ music. If you were a little kid, maybe you're younger than me, when you roller skated, it was only organ music. It wasn't pop songs. And
yeah, that's true. Go ahead.
Why was that? Why was it just organ? Like, the reason I think I love organ music so much is that when I was a little kid, we'd go roller skating and it was only organ music, and it was very cool. And that equals a good time for me. But why were they doing that? Do you even know? Like, what was the reason for that?
Well, because first of all, I'm 50, so I caught the tail end of that. There was a skating place in Philadelphia, in the suburbs of Philly, and yes, they had an organ. They had like 12 Leslies in there. I remember that, all around the place, Leslie speakers. I think because of the way the sound carried, and it was just a very smooth kind of sound, and you could hire one guy, so it was affordable, and it could fill the room before. And then also to play music from like a DJ, or now they just play. You had to pay for that too. You had to pay ASCAP, BMI, and things. So it was a lot easier to just hire a cat, one guy, play the organ, get a big sound. He covers the bass, he covers all that. And for many years it was a Hammond. Then it turned into one of the organs that had the rhythm machines on it and all that. So but yeah, that's a good analogy. It had a certain feeling, skating, but at the same time, I never want anybody to say that when I'm playing, it sounds like a roller rink.
He said that he was thinking about doing an album title, music to roller skate too. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
I'm not crazy. This happened in my past, so I feel good. So we're going to get into this album. It's called More Music. It came out on September 2021 on the Mac Avenue label. And we were talking about your situation with Victor North.
Yeah.
Right. The second song on the track, I believe, is Lady G, which is a tribute to your wife, Gloria, who is awesome. You did a great job. You pulled out the tenor sax for that. It has a nice Ben Webster vibe to it.
I'll take that. I love Ben Webster. The first thing that I think about, that I thought about when I wanted to play, like when I told you I played many years ago, we're talking like for maybe a week. That was it. So this is really the time where I got into it. So the first thing I think about, especially after a lot of experience of being around all these great musicians, and saxophone, tenor in particular, has always been a huge influence on my playing. I mean, my approach to the organ has always very much been like saxophone. My players like Coltrane and Sonny Rollins, George Coleman, those were where I got a lot of influence from my improvisational ideas harmonically, right? But then when you start to play the instrument, you really start to pay attention to sound. So the first thing I thought about, I want to make sure I have a good sound, or I'm not gonna bother with that. And I think a lot of that is already in your mind, what you want to sound like. And if you already have that in your mind, it's going to come out on the instrument once you figure out how to work it, you know? Yeah. And that tune, I had been playing it a little bit. That's one song that I wrote in 2019, because in 2019 is when I started playing the saxophone on gigs, because the band I had at the time, that was when In the Key of the Universe came out. Troy Roberts also played very nice acoustic bass and electric, but it gave a chance to put his saxophone down, and I would play one song a set, and he would grab the upright. So now it was like upright, tenor, and drums. So that's when I started doing that, because then I started thinking, wow, how hip would it be to have another keyboard player, another organ player that could take over when I do this? So that's what that came about. And that tune is just it's the second tune that's named, Lady G. Yeah, that's Gloria, and I wrote for her. That's the vibe, that, nice soulful vibe that I get with the melody on there. And it was like perfect for a nice breathy kind of tenor sound,
The next song I would like to talk about is Free, which is the first song on the album. It just jumps off. It's a beautiful jam, and you're on trumpet on this one, correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, I don't in general like to talk about what I'm doing and what I'm playing and what in general, just because it's like, it's a humbling kind of, it's a humbling thing to be able to do this and write music and play it and get everybody to hear it. Right. So I don't want to just talk about what we are talking about. I'll talk about the ideas behind the songs and things like that. So yeah, Free was written specifically for me to play trumpet on. And basically it's a rhythm change with a very simple melody line that gives you the freedom to improvise over those rhythm change type changes with a little slightly different bridge to it. It's open, even though there's form. That's the thing about this music, is that there's form, but when you improvise, you're free to improvise. That's why it's good to have a lot of knowledge harmonically, so you could go all over the place. So that's really what that title means by free. You can go where you want,
When I interviewed you, I remember I would say, "What do you think about this song?" And you'd be like, "Well, what do you think about it?" Because he goes, "It doesn't really matter what I think about it; it's what you think about it." The next song I want to talk about is "If You Please." This is a Mario Romano song, and I did a little research on him. I'm not familiar with this song, so when I listened to it, he's from Toronto. He was a musician and became a real estate developer. And then
that's right.
Late in life, he started recording, and wow, this song is awesome. It's a great song.
Yeah, and he's an incredible songwriter. The lyrics he writes and the melodies and everything are beautiful. I mean, I can write, and I can write some nice songs, but I've never been one for lyrics. I wrote lyrics to one tune, and that one was pretty good, I thought. But it's not something that comes natural to me. But he's really writes beautiful melody and wonderful lyrics, and he's got a lot of songs like.
If you please, would you love me forever? Make this dream our endeavor. Let's send this prayer up to heaven. And if you please, let me love you forever. In this bliss I surrender. My soul, my heart in sweet tender. From that first playful glance, full of sparkling romance, while the sigh in the sky whispers love so divine. Was it me, maybe you, how we knew this was true? Just a matter of time. I was yours, you were mine. Let our love be forever. Bless our hearts in each other. This prayer, this love, divine splendor.
In times of reflection, you got you on the organ and piano and trumpet, right? And then you got Lucas on acoustic guitar?
No, I'm playing piano on that.
Okay.
Lucas is playing acoustic guitar. Lucas also played the bass lines on that too.
And then you did trumpet? Yes,
I played a trumpet solo on there as well because it just fit to do that. And that tune reminds me of, when you listen to it and you reflect on time and things that are happening, that have happened. It's got that vibe.
Yeah, definitely.
And you look at that. And it's got the acoustic guitar and the organ, and the piano. It reminds me of the vibe has got the Bill Evans, Jim Hall kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
But different. But that's the feeling I get.
I got one more for you, which is getting a lot of airplay, which is Roll With It. So you're on organ and Lucas is on guitar, right?
Yes. Okay. And Roll With It, it's like, sorry, you have a question?
Oh, no, my statement was it feels like it's vintage. Like this could have been like a nice, like late 50s, early 60s song. Like this is an original recording of yours, but it has that vibe that it could have been very like placed back in that time period.
Well, it's a straight ahead tune. It's got, it basically what it is. It's a mesh of Confirmation, Charlie Parker, and Coltrane Giant Steps. But that wouldn't have been the way that melody and harmonically, the approach of that is very much modern. I mean, they wouldn't have written anything like that in that time. But it's okay that, it's got that vibe and that feel. I know what you mean. And I wanted to have something on there like that. And that's what Roll With It means, It's got everything. That's what more music means, right? It means a lot of things, but that's another thing. The tunes, it reflects on it. This is something that I've always been very big believer of, is to reflect the whole history of the music, not just one particular thing. Because to me, there are no differences. They all go together.
Yeah, I can see that with your last two albums along with this. I call this an epic recording. It's an event. It's called More Music. It's on Mack Avenue. I was very pro on your last album. I was out there promoting. If I could vote for you on the Grammys, I would have. I was out there on Facebook. Yeah, Facebook and Instagram pushing it. This album has a lot of meat to it. It's a multiple play. There's so much material in there that people are going to love. The virtuosity of your team and that you have on playing with you. It's called More Music, Mack Avenue, September 20th, 21st. Joey, I thank you very much for talking to me today on Something Came from Baltimore.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for being so knowledgeable about the music and my recordings. But also, since this is something about Baltimore, I'm going to be playing the Keystone Corner, October 29th through 31st for 3 nights. So it would be great if you could come out, check us out live.
I'll be down there. I'll make sure this time that I bump into you and say hi. I wish I had those cassettes. I would make you sign them.
That'd be cool.
I don't have them anymore, but I wish I did. All right.
That's all right.
Thank you very much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it. And I'm always a fan, and I can't wait to hear your next stuff.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. You're welcome. You have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.